welcome to this week's Fireside Chat with Jesse. I am joined today by Brett Davis, CEO of North American Equipment Dealers Association. Thanks for joining me, Brett.
Thank you, Jesse. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on this program. It's great to actually see your face. I can't remember the last time I've
haven't seen you in a while, yeah.
So excited to kind of catch up, via, this podcast format and learn more about what you're doing today.
Great. Looking forward to it.
Perfect. So, Brett, for those people who haven't had the pleasure of meeting you, do you mind just kind of introducing yourself and your career to date in equipment finance?
Yeah. I have a long history in equipment finance. I like to always say I'm from Pennsylvania. I'm a Penn State grad and also a Penn State Dickinson School of Law grad. So a lot of my early career in financial services was from the legal side. In private practice, I worked for a sizable Pennsylvania law firm and represented a number of different banks, credit unions, actually some equipment dealers, and others. And from there, I transitioned over to CNH Industrial and started out as counsel, actually. And so I've had it was an interesting transition. I went from being an independent law firm into a corporate environment. And I didn't know how long I'd stay, but I ended up almost staying 30 years. I don't know, maybe it'll be a day or two, but it sure flew by pretty fast. So, I had wonderful opportunities at CNH Industrial to grow my career, expand my skill set, learn new things. I was a lawyer for a while, and I got involved in business projects, and I took some business assignments, all in financial services, in the captive. And just basically grew my career. I had the pleasure of working overseas for almost 11 years, Brazil,
wow,
Argentina. I also lived in Europe for a little while. We had a bank in Brazil. We had a finance company in Argentina. So a lot of cool things. So in a lot of ways, I feel like I've been blessed to have those experiences. My daughter is actually Brazilian, born in Brazil, so she carries a Brazilian passport. I was teasing her the other day that she might get deported.
I'm not laughing.
But I got to learn new languages and experiences. And then I'd say my career culminated I shouldn't say it culminated, but my financial services portion of my career, I didn't finish, but I reached sort of the peak when I was president and chairman of CNH Industrial Capital. Did that for several years. I replaced the retiring Steve Bierman, who was well known in the industry as well. And then I actually had kind of like lived a dream almost. I've been in the financial services pieces of the business forever, but observing all the other pieces of the CNH Industrial business, and we're a manufacturer. And I actually got to run New Holland, the brand New Holland, for 3 years. And I loved it. It was a great opportunity, hard work. I had a lot to learn in a short period of time, but I was able to apply everything that I had learned over the years and have a successful run, there as well. And then that was it. And I reached a point in my career where I was finished at CNH, and I took on I got to do. I figured, now it's time to do some different things. I got onto some boards. I helped some startups. So basically, a consultant. And consulting is a little different. And then I also joined a well-known player in the industry, his advisory firm, Bob Rinaldi. And I always like to tell the story of how I connected with Bob, and it kind of relates back to what I'm doing currently as well. Actually, I just started in position 7-1. But when I came back from Brazil, our chief credit officer, Tom Mariani, said, "Hey, Brett, there's a guy going to come to see us. He's very well known in the industry. He wants to talk to you about Alpha." And I said, "Oh yeah, I've heard of that." And I said, "I understand it's a very nice organization." And he said, "Well, Bob's a great guy. You're going to love him. Your predecessor didn't want to join for whatever reason, but everybody else is members, and I think it's very valuable for us." And I said, "Yeah, that makes sense to me." So Bob came out, and we hit it off right away when I saw him light up a cigar and pour a glass of bourbon. And I said, "Oh, if this is what this association is part of it, and Bob's part of it, this is for me." And quite frankly, he's one of the most learned people in the industry, and he's a wealth of knowledge. And so we became friends, and that's why that's the pleasure of joining associations like, Equipment Leasing and Finance Association or other associations. You not only, you get to hang out with your peers, you get to exchange ideas, you make these connections and these friendships that are extremely valuable, professionally and personally. So that's the benefit of all that stuff. And I found immediate, the wealth of benefits from not just me, but from my staff members at CNH to be a part of that association. So I think that's a great story. So I joined his advisory firm. We worked on a number of different projects. And then the last year I was contracted as a consultant to restructure or work on restructuring a group of dealers that had come together of 8 family businesses, essentially 7 family business, were bought out by a bigger parent company. And when you do that, when you cobble together all these different businesses and different cultures, it takes time to get it it takes time to get it organized and put the disciplines in place. So I was working on that the last couple of years, which was a lot of fun. I learned a lot there as well. I always thought I knew a ton about equipment dealers, but actually being one, and I think every person that works at the manufacturing level says, I want to be a dealer someday. Well, yeah, it was cool. And I'd say the one takeaway that I learned the most, I came from CNH, a very structured company. I know a lot about John Deere. I know a lot about Caterpillar, blah, blah, blah. I know a lot about all these guys. And, we did think, we had our dealers, the way we dealt with them was very cordial, fair dealings. We did everything. And, there's a lot of dealer legislation laws that are out there, everything in accordance with that, and, I just assumed that every manufacturer did the same. I learned very quickly that what we call shortliners, which would be more niche manufacturers, specialty manufacturers, it's not the way it works. A lot of them come from Europe. And it wasn't that they didn't know. It wasn't that they were intentionally doing stuff. They didn't know what they didn't know. And I found a lot of my time educating my suppliers on how to do business in North America. I found it kind of ironic. And so now I bring it full circle, and I just got appointed, I think the press release was a couple of weeks ago, the CEO of the North American Equipment Dealers Association. We have 3,000 locations or more of dealers, equipment dealers. And, having all these different experiences, and when I saw that job, it was an open search through Robert Half. I was like, man, I think this would be pretty cool because I can take everything over the last 30 some years and just wrap it into a ball and sort of,
Sure.
I'm like, I can't think of a better way to finish my career. So this is sort of my, my thing. And it's been great. I started working before I actually physically started, to get up to speed quickly, but it's been just an amazing pleasure. A lot different than the corporate environment. We have great people. It's not a huge organization. We have like 40 people. It's probably double the size of Alpha, I guess. And our mission is quite interesting, Jesse. And that's why I'm very passionate about it too, because I've always been passionate about equipment dealers and equipment, and providing them services, helping them, restructuring them, counseling them, whether I was a consultant, whether I was at CNH or otherwise. So now I'm back to doing that, but in a different kind of format. We are true dealer advocates. So we will, if a dealer gets into something wrong with the manufacturer, contractual dispute, we can help them. And we do it from a side of fair dealing. Right before I got on this conference, I was on the phone with my friends at AEM, which represents all the manufacturers, and and it's like it doesn't have to be a conflict. We have to make the dealer. The only way to get things done the right way and everybody on the same page is fair dealings. So we just make sure that there's fair dealings. We have a legislative arm, of course. We do some consulting, and one of the things I see that's absent a little bit at NAEDA that I'm going to bring to the table is bring a little bit more in the service providers in, and including financial services. Of course, the big guys have their captives, but the dealers can lean on them. But there's plenty of other business out there in the specialty markets with other manufacturers. So I'm really going to make an effort to marry it up, and bring in a lot of financial service partners, the independent FinCos that are represented by NIFA and Alpha and whatnot. So I reached out to Alpha already, and had good conversations with them, and this you got to provide the more. As I explained to my team, I did a brief presentation to them, gave them a little bit of my philosophy, a little bit of my background, and my do's and don'ts, and I said to them, this is all about creating membership value. If the members see value in whatever we do, our membership will grow and thrive and prosper. Everything else will fall into place. So everything we do has to be focused on membership value. So whether advocacy, whatever the case may be. And I had some pretty good laughs. I got lots of calls from I have tons of dealer friends, and and I did some consulting for dealers, and and I'm like, well, they're like, I said, now you don't have to pay me. You can just call up. It's free now. I'm here for you. I'm here to help all of you. Whatever you need, I'm here. So, and it's free. Well, it's not free. You have to pay your dues, but
I mean, that's perfectly fair. That's awesome. Well, thank you for that. There's a lot to unpack in that introduction. So thank you. I'm going to try to do my best. First of all, I didn't know that Tom worked for CNH.
Oh yeah, yeah. He was my chief credit officer.
Mm-hmm. This many years old until I learned that.
He's got a great background too. Because he worked at several OEMs. He worked at PACCAR. He worked at Navistar. He not only did credit for a lot of years, but he also did dealer development, and that kind of matters. He did dealer development, so that setting up the dealers and helping the dealers. So he has a lot of experience in working with the dealers.
It's interesting from a service provider perspective because, I mean, next month makes my 20th year in equipment finance, and I've been to PACCAR, Navistar, and a few others, but you don't see these organizations attending these conferences that I traditionally go to, like the trade associations you just mentioned. But they all need or all have or need system level support or these things that I don't know. I was wondering. So what is? Let's just go into the NAEDA.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you about the associations, and I find them to be. I was active in Alpha. I was on the board. I was active at AEM because I learned, and I like to learn. I learned from other people. I learned from presenters. I learned from this one and that one. I made connections. One of the story I always tell is, well, I love to tell stories. So my first Alpha conference, I walk in, and I'm walking around the service provider room, where they have all the tables and displays. And I really like that. Besides, I have a little addiction to Chotsky sometimes. But anyway, and my wife yells at me and makes them throw them out. But they're cluttering up the house. But anyway, so I'm walking down the first row, and I was with a couple of my team members, or maybe I was by myself, and I see a display, and it was and I'm like, it had all this data, and I'm like, man, this is what I've been asking my guys for. And they say they don't have it. So I went up to the guy, introduced myself, and I said, hi, I'm Brett Davis. And he's looking at my badge. And I said, tell me what this costs, and I'd like to buy this. And he said, Brett. He said, CNH pays us $300 and some thousand a year for the data. You have access to everything. And I said, I asked my guys if they knew if they had any of this data. They said no. And he goes, well, they probably don't know how to use it properly. And it was the EDA, now Fusible, and a guy named Jeff Cole. I think you probably know Jeff, great guy. And so they flew out there, they trained us, and he always tells me, now we're friends, Jeff and I. I'm a big advocate for that data because I used to take the AEM data that they publish and marry it up with the EDA data, the UCC data, and try to look at trends and try to project things and whatnot. So that's why these associations and these conferences are so important. You don't want to live in a bubble. You don't want to constantly look inward. You sometimes have to look at the bigger world.
Sure. Not only that, though, it's just one of the things that we've been doing lately as an organization is we've been going into companies and basically saying, give us all your third-party contracts. And we just kind of do a refresher in regards to the systems, the modules, how many different, if it's a managed services contract, how many workstations. And it's amazing how much you sit there and see where it's like, what are you doing? You're not using this. You're paying for that. And
Mhm.
it's like right there. It's like, how do you not know? And it's just, it happens all the time because
Yeah.
people move on, business is business. You have to move on and you just forget.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious to learn a little more. So, how many members of the association are there, and what is the typical, I guess, member look like? Is it the
Mhm.
bigger players like you've been mentioning, or are there some? I know you said there's some niche players. I think of
Mhm.
it kind of like I walk around Connex, right? I think Connex is next year, and I look at all these things and I'm like, what is going on? Like, there's names that
Crazy,
I've
isn't it?
never heard of, but then
Yeah.
you go up to the finance guys, and it's like, well, who's doing this? It's like, oh, Bank of the West, well now BMO or
Yeah.
DLL. So it's like, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah. So, our core member group, I'd say the legacy historical, um, was mostly agricultural dealers across North America.
That,
We're US and Canada.
that,
Um, was and but that over the years, I mean, most of the ag dealers have gotten into light construction. Almost any farm you walk on, they have skid steers or telehandlers or whatever the case may be. They're using them. So a lot of them have light construction. There are some that have heavy construction. We also have like the utility dealers or outdoor power dealers as well as a separate vertical. And that's probably where a lot of our growth will come over the next couple of years because there's so many of them and they're underserved, in my opinion. And I'm really excited about the opportunity to serve them. Um, so yeah,
yeah, that's such a specialty vocational
yeah,
vehicle that I mean, I don't see
I,
residuals on those things would last. I think of how complex they are, and
yeah,
like,
yeah. It's hard to, a lot of them you won't lease because you really don't know the secondary market. So, um,
right, yeah,
yeah, we have all shapes and sizes. So if I look at our board, our board's made up of 13 equipment dealers. Um, and it's a mix of Case New Holland, Deere, Agco, Kubota. Some of them have multiple brands. Some of them were my old dealers that I was very close with. One I was on their board. Mazer is on the board. But then there's one New Holland dealer in Utah on the board. He has two stores. There's one guy in Canada, in Western, I forget what, he's in Alberta, I believe. I spoke to him the other day, and he has one store, very successful one store location with Kubota and Agco. So I mean, it's all shapes and sizes. Yeah, and then we have a Deere dealer that has almost 40 locations on the board. Yeah,
ah, okay.
yeah,
So some good,
yeah.
some good diversity there. Now, from a, I guess when you applied for that position, did they sit there and think that you were overqualified because you're so? And this is just me being this is me. You and I have a candid
Great
conversation.
question.
I think of you, and it's like, dude, how are you going to provide strategy for this association on the 2 to 5 year outlook when you can get so granular in the weeds because you know all of the issues that people are
Yeah,
having?
yeah. That comment came up in the initial interviews, and it came up when the face to face with the board as well. And I kind of chuckled at it because I'm like, I don't know how I can be overqualified because I've never run an association before.
Hey,
I thought,
hey, if a simpleton like me thought about that in the last 20 minutes of you talking,
oh, I wouldn't call you, but yeah, it came up, and I kind of chuckled, and I'm like, I don't know how you can think that. And interestingly, I called my sister-in-law after that. And I told her my sister-in-law is the CEO of the American College of Physicians. It's a huge institution. Um, and she is a doctor, of course, and she was a professor and on staff at Temple and a dean, still a dean at Temple. So I said, "How was your transition?" And she was like me; she served on the boards of these associations, so she know. And then they asked her to be the CEO, and she goes, "Well, the same principles apply, right? Whether it's business, whether it's an association, you have to run them. I mean, they need leadership. They need the leadership principles. It's it has, just because it's a nonprofit doesn't mean anything. It still has to work like in a business way. Your mission might be a little different. So, that gave me some comfort in talking to her. And I reached out to a few other people at Alpha, and I knew I actually talked to Ralph Pettit quite a bit for a few hours. Yeah. And and from what I'm seeing so far, yes, it's, the things that we're looking at, modernizing some platforms. Well, you do that in the business too, right? We need to do that for ourselves. Database, enhancing the database, little things.
Or well, no, I mean, leading by example. I mean, every single thing that you're preaching up there, or not preaching, but discussing or seeing,
Yeah,
you've been through it before. So that's
yeah,
something that
yeah,
people traditionally don't have when they run
yeah,
associations.
yeah. So yeah, it's not a huge organization. It's for association, it's pretty big. But it's not a huge organization. It's not a huge budget or anything like that, like I'm used to, but that doesn't matter. And I honestly just couldn't think of, I saw it posted and I thought about it for a month. And then I called one of the board members who's a good friend. And I said, what do you think? And he goes, you would be great. And you'd be just what they need. And so he made it happen.
That's
So,
awesome. Well,
yeah,
that's congratulations.
thank you.
And then, so how many members?
Look, we do it by locations. There's quite a few thousand in dealers,
Okay.
locations
Okay.
across North America. I have a map. Um, I'll send it to
Okay.
you because I was on the phone with short line manufacturer. They were asking for help, and we can help them too because I can marry them up with dealers. And then again, making sure, hey, look, if you're going to do business in North America, go in the right way. Otherwise, you're going to get a bad reputation. Find the right partners. Maybe we can help you. So yeah, I'm a dealer advocate, but we have members that are also OEMs. All the big OEMs are members: Deere, Case, Kubota. But they're associate members. They're associate members. We have different levels of membership categories. We have the service
Got it.
providers, but a little different than other organizations. They cannot serve on the board. And they don't have any voting rights. So it's only
The service providers don't, or OEMs can't either, just
no,
dealers.
no, no. But like I said, we're almost like an intermediary. We can speak on behalf of the dealers to the
And
OEM.
then, what is the percentage of service providers to OEMs and dealers?
Well, dealers would be the vast majority,
Okay.
and I think it's one of the focal points that I want to enhance the service providers.
Well, I just think of Alpha, right? You go there and it's like, you look at it, and I want to say it's
Yeah,
almost like 50-50 now.
50. So we're
People
not
look
anywhere
at.
near that. We're not anywhere near that.
So it's a well underserved, and it's an opportunity for, I guess, organizations
Mhm.
like me and other people to kind of go in there and help those companies out. So
Exactly.
interesting.
I talked to advisors that would like to be a part of it. The people that I've worked with, different consultants as well, recruiting firms. I was on the phone with a friend of mine yesterday. To me, is one of them. His name is Adam Wainwright, Adam Raybond, and he's one of the most knowledgeable recruiters in the equipment industry that I've ever met, and a great guy. And I said, this will benefit you. We don't have a recruiter as a service provider here. And we're all, and he works a lot of PE firms that are buying up dealerships and stuff like that. And I'm like, he goes, yeah, I was going to reach out to you. I saw the announcement and I just hadn't had a minute. And I said, yeah. So I sent him a text. You're joining.
All right. So how are dues set up then for service providers?
Oh, I think the big OEMs is probably $5,000, and then for
Okay.
smaller service providers like 2,500, something like
Okay.
that. It's not very expensive.
Sorry, I'm just more of a curiosity. You don't have to,
Yeah, yeah.
and then, how many conferences do you guys have a year? Like, what does it
Um,
look like from
we do so.
in-person perspective?
Yeah, there's the one main conference coming up in Orlando in November. It's the national. A lot of the stuff we do is virtual, and a lot of publications as well. So there could
Okay.
be some different councils that meet and stuff like that, and other. But the big conference is the annual. We
How
publish.
many people?
Oh, I don't. Good question. The ones I have been to them the last couple of years. It's not huge. You probably get 300-400.
Okay.
I'm hoping to get more this year.
Okay.
I'm trying to invite all my old pals. One of the things that this organization does, I mean, every organization has some things like, Alpha does some publications and reports. So these guys publish, and I always liked it. And that was one of the things that I think is a cornerstone of the organization. It's called a manufacturer dealer relations survey every year. So all the dealers will rate the OEMs on a number of different categories. it could be parts availability.
That's the-
And the OEMs take it very seriously. We did when I was at CNH.
Sure. Sure.
And it's a way to self-improve. I remember my first year running New Holland. One of the things that I saw the scores over the years had been low on like communication with executive. Well, that's easy. That just doesn't cost anything. All I do is got to set up a webinar, and I started to do what you're doing here, like fireside chats. And the deal, and then the score went way up, and the whole organization, kind of rejuvenated itself.
It's
So
fantastic. I mean, it's a good thing that when you collect the data, it's more important that you follow up with the data.
yes,
I've actually seen organizations who collect data, and I'm like, "What are you doing with it?" They're like, "Oh, we just collect it."
yeah,
What are you doing?
it's true. I
Like,
mean, yeah. So yeah,
don't ever ask someone for their opinion and they
yeah.
give it to you and then you don't follow up with them. That's the
Well,
dumbest thing ever.
that's called being a consultant. They hire you, they pay you, and then they'll listen and agree, and they'll agree, and they'll agree, and they know it's the right thing, and they won't do it. which is the frustrating part about being a consultant. I think I would say maybe that's why, like, I would give people candid advice, which probably said, you don't need this. Why don't do it like this? You don't need me to help you do that. And I'm like, I just talked myself out of money, I guess. But
You did, however, it's the right thing to do
the
because
right
it's
thing
like
to
if you're not
do.
going to listen to me, then why am I even here? And that's one of the
Yeah.
most refreshing things about now doing this for 3 years, Brett. Like if someone's going to listen, I have other things I can do. I don't want to
Yeah,
sit there and just
exactly. Yeah,
take your money and be worthless.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. You got to feel purpose, right? And and I realized, you know, I'll tell you something on a bit of a personal side. I was ready to move on from CNH, 100%. I was ready. I thought I didn't want to do much. I thought I wanted to retire. And I took that year or two, that first year, did some, I worked, but not much. I mean, I worked a decent amount, but not 10 hours a week. Um, it wasn't for me. It just, you had to do a lot of self-reflection. Then when I started going back and kind of working more full-time-ish, I realized that this is what makes me tick. It wasn't that I was ready to retire. I was just ready to do something different after all those years. And that's why I'm excited, man. My energy, I have a lot of
Well, I mean,
high
when
energy
you've been with
dude.
an organization, when you've been with an organization long enough, and you sit there and you think about the level of energy and effort that's going to take, it's like, wow, okay, 30 years. Where do I go from there? Some of that imposter syndrome kind of sinks in, where it's like, okay, well, this is what I got up to be. How do I do that again? It's just
Mhm.
once you just kind of get over that stuff and be like, nah, I'm just gonna be passionate about it and go out and put
Yeah.
my best foot forward every day. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I tell people, I'm my Marriott, and they're like, well, how many nights have you stayed in a Marriott? I said, well, just Marriott. I've stayed in other hotels. My lifetime is over 1,000 nights. I said, think about it. That's 3 years of your life in a hotel. And they're like, well, what was your airline? And I said, well, I flew multiple airlines, but I have one. I'm a 1.5 million miler on United. Yeah. So
Did you get a bottle of Twist Top red wine? Because when I hit a million miles on United, they brought me back a bottle of Twist
no,
Top wine
nothing
and a
like a
note
good.
written on it. A note written on a napkin saying congratulations. Like seriously, this is
Yeah.
you could
Or,
upgrade me
or
to
you,
first class at least. I'm like sitting in the exit row like window. I'm like, come on. I'm like,
or you get a bag tag.
yeah, that's like congratulations.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. So I mean, you realize, and that's excessive. I mean, I think it's a lot, but that's what we did, and now that the world has shifted to a little bit more virtual stuff, that's helpful too. And I think, we can balance the in-person versus the virtual a lot.
And I want to touch on something you talked about earlier. So you're from Pennsylvania, and you moved to Wisconsin, right? Um, then so from a family perspective, what was your wife like every time she's like, wait a second, we're going here, now we're going Brazil, now we're going like,
Well, I'll
like,
take you through. I'll take you through all the moves, and it's kind of. I'll tie it up with a little funny story about yesterday.
uh,
Um, but so I started in New Holland, Pennsylvania, which is the campus for CNH, and then we ended up merging with Case IH shortly thereafter, a few years later. But I actually was there for a couple of years in New Holland in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and then I got transferred to California, and that's when I took my first business assignment. I was like operations manager of Western region, I don't know, something like that. And so we weren't even married. We were getting married. We were not married yet. So they actually were great. They moved her too. So, you know, we made life easy. Then I get a call like 6, 7 months later, and they're like, "You ever think about living in Argentina?" And I said, "No, never really thought about it." Well, or going to Argentina. Here's what's going on. We're buying the distributor out. And, you know, there's some financial services pieces to the business, and we'd like to send someone down there. I'm like, what the hell? Let me go get my passport. Oh, yeah. And they said, "Why, get a Brazilian visa too." That's what they
It
had.
doesn't make sense for it. So at least you guys didn't have like kids yet at that time,
We didn't
right?
have kids yet. Yeah, we didn't have kids yet. So then, yeah, while I was in Argentina, we got married. Yeah, obviously back home, but
I would have done it down there. You could have had a really nice wedding, and it would have been cheaper because you've been like, if you want to attend, you come on down.
yeah, maybe.
But being from the Northeast, you can't get away with that.
Can't get away from that. So then we were in Argentina for a couple of years, then to Brazil, then to Racine, Wisconsin, then back to Brazil. Well, I went from Argentina to Brazil to Wisconsin, back to Brazil, back to Wisconsin to New Holland, Lancaster County again. So I went full circle back, and that was one of the reasons that attracted me to the New Holland position. I was back near family and, you know, old friends and whatnot. So, and Lancaster County is beautiful as well. Yeah, these last years, so we're kind of like, you know, my daughter just graduated from the university, and so we're kind of like empty nesters, I guess. So we actually lived the last almost year and a half or so in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and that's when I was working on the dealership stuff, and I thought that was cool.
Okay, I didn't know that at all. I assumed that you were flying from South Florida to. I'm like, it's a long flight.
Yeah, it was too hard. I had to get a place. It's because you can't get a direct flight, so it was really hard.
Sure.
Yeah,
Idaho is beautiful.
Oh God, I didn't. You know, there's only 2 or 3 states I haven't been to, and Idaho was one of them. And then I ended up living there and falling in love with it. And I was skiing, and you know this, and we lived right by the Centennial Trail. It was a beautiful place, just a magnificent town. Wine was great and whatnot. But now, as we speak here today, I'm sitting here in Kansas City in a corporate apartment that will go away. And I just, right before I had to move the meeting, I went and signed a lease at a small place in downtown Kansas City. So, and I'm flying back to Florida this afternoon.
Nice.
So home will stay in Florida. Oh, yeah, base camp will stay in Florida, which it has. And I'll go back and forth to Kansas City, you know, regularly.
Well, sounds like a lot of fun, and I know you're only a couple weeks into this, but you know, it's gonna be a fun ride for you, Brett, for sure.
I think so. I hope so. I hope so. Yeah, I think so.
So I ask everyone who comes on the program. I know you already gave me a little bit of what makes you tick, but outside of work, what do you enjoy doing?
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to tell you the funny thing about yesterday before I get to that.
Okay. All right.
So, all these moves, and I have managed to not be there. So you asked about support from my wife. She's been wonderfully supportive. So yesterday we actually moved back into our condo in Florida because while we were in Coeur d'Alene, we gutted it, and we've been staying in a apart hotel by the beach last month because we thought it would be done.
Oh, so you made her do the move.
So she was there. But the last 4 moves, I was traveling for work.
Hey, you know what? I give you a lot less credit than I should, sir. Your strategic senses are off the chart.
Yeah. So I guess the only funny fact is it's been about 4, right when I left CNH, I started a journey.
Okay.
I lost some weight, which was great, but I fell in love with hot Pilates and hot yoga. So I'm a yogi. There's something in your face that's telling me you don't want to even picture this. So I go, and I like to boast in Coeur d'Alene. In the month of March, I won the challenge. 38 classes in 31 days, and I was away for a week.
I don't even know where to go with that. We'll just that's awesome. We'll just go like that. I
I'm so
don't know.
proud.
I don't even know what to do. I tell you what, in a couple weeks when I'm in your backyard, I will not go with you to hot yoga.
Oh, there's some good places down there, man. Where I'm moving in Kansas City.
People don't want to see this in
Hey,
a yoga.
I was there, brother. I was there. Now it's now I'm and yeah, and the irony, my wife she's more of a weightlifter. She's not very big. She's small, but she loves to lift weights, and she can lift heavy weights. She's strong. And then people are like, "Well, what's your wife do for workout? Does she go to classes with you?" I said, "No, she lifts heavy weights, and you go to yoga." Okay, whatever, whatever makes the family go.
2025, leave me alone, right?
Yeah,
Come
yeah.
on.
So yeah, I'm a yogi, and
All right.
when you're living in a small town like Coeur d'Alene, a lot of the teachers work in the service industry. So we go out to dinner, and there's this one teacher, very nice lady, and she works at one of the Anthony's restaurants, which is the seafood place out west. And she comes over and says hi, and I introduce her to my wife, and she looks at my wife and she says, "You must be so proud of Brett and his yoga journey." In that voice too, the yoga voice, and she looks at her like, "What the hell's wrong with you?"
I would have pulled out my phone and been like, "Can you say that again, please?"
But I found it. Yeah, it was actually one of the best studios I've ever been to in the one in Coeur d'Alene. It had 5 or 6 of them, I think. But oh, it was great. And then there was another on Sundays. I used to go down. I used to take a class. I'd take a hot Pilates class and follow it up with a yin yang class, a yoga. Same teacher. And in hot Pilates, she's all energetic, and she was a kindergarten teacher, so she talked to us like we were little children. And it was pretty funny. Like people back of me got yelled at because they were talking during Shavasana. Oh, no, 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 no.
Oh God.
Like, yeah.
Oh man.
Woo.
I thought maybe the waitress came over and said, "We have hot yoga in the morning. Don't eat that, Brett."
I was having fish.
That's fantastic. I want to say this is episode 242. I don't think I've cried during someone tell me what they did. Visuals are amazing. Awesome. I guess my last question I have for you, Brett, is why should someone become a member of NAEDA?
Well, if you're in the equipment industry, whether you're a small manufacturer or whatever, a service provider in that space, financial services, insurance, whatever, consultant, and, it's a way to connect with your dealers and also leverage the organization for information, for knowledge on, how to work with dealers is very important. And of course, it's a no-brainer if you're a dealer, because we're going to help you. We're advocates. This was really cool. I didn't know about it until I started. They actually have a fund that they will use if a dealer needs help with like legal stuff. We'll take on it and we'll use the fund.
Huh.
Yeah, it's impressive. They have so many cool things. It's and I want to get the word out. It's big, it's strong. They got great things going on. Yeah, we need to modernize our marketing a little bit, and get the word out. Like some of the things I'm learning that they do, I'm like, wow, that's so awesome. And it's just it's a matter of just making sure we're all. This is another organization that was a lot of small associations, regional ones, state ones, and they've all come together in the last couple of years. So now that's the heavy lifting here. A lot of that's been accomplished by the last CEO. He's done most of it. Now it's just, moving the pieces around a little bit better, and whatnot. But it's, and that's what you're seeing with these associations, Jesse, that, you can't have 50 different state associations doing the same thing.
Consolidation is real across the board when it comes
Yeah.
to banks. You just saw a software one yesterday in the leasing industry.
Yeah.
Consolidation needs to happen more
Yeah.
often. There's just too much out there, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean,
it is what it is.
The agricultural equipment industry, in terms of manufacturing, is pretty consolidated. There's some niche guys, but there's really only 3 full-line players. When I look at construction, because I did a lot of construction equipment when I was at FMI, there's 30 different manufacturers of skid steers, or of mini excavators. I mean, there just hasn't been a lot of consolidation. And you have the two giant, you have like a giant, like Caterpillar is dominant and Deere is what does well, but everybody does their little niches too. And
Yeah.
it's just too many. And they're all building the same thing. And, what's the value proposition there? So I think,
One's painted green.
yeah,
The other ones maybe have, I think of like, if you put and we can go on forever in regards to what makes it better. But if you can get some real runtime data with a GPS unit on it, see idle time and everything else, like that's technology where I would pay more for that.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, and the R&D and whatnot. I mean,
Yeah.
so I would imagine there'll be a shakeout and there'll be some consolidators in the construction industry. Obviously, Caterpillar is not going to be a consolidator; they're already dominant, right? But it's the rest; it's everybody else.
Well, especially with tariffs and everything else, those, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, with this conversation keep going on forever, so I'm excited to continue it, man. But congratulations, it's good
Thank
seeing
you.
your face.
Good
Hopefully
seeing
we
you.
hopefully we run into each other in a couple weeks here when I'm in
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
neck of the woods.
Yeah.
And make sure you continue to keep me updated on the association.
I will.
If there's people that want to come on this program, just let me know, and
Yeah.
I'll plan on being there. And send me the October information.
Okay, I will. Cool. All right,
All right,
Jess.
Brett.
Great seeing you.
Thank you
Have a
very much,
happy
sir.
holiday. Great holiday, man.
Happy 4th. Take care, sir.
Yeah.
Take care.
Take care, buddy.
Bye.
Bye.